Have you ever heard the story of a father who sacrificed his only daughter to keep a vow he made to God? A story so haunting, so tragic, that it has shaken readers of the Bible for centuries. Hidden in the pages of the book of Judges, the life of Jephthah the Gileadite is one of the most shocking tales of love, rejection, war, and loss. It is a story that forces us to wrestle with the deepest questions of faith, promises, and the cost of devotion. This is not just another Bible story. This is the kind of account that makes us stop, tremble, and ask, what kind of vow could cost a man the life of his only child? Why would God allow such a tragedy? And what can we, thousands of years later, learn from the pain of Jephthah's sacrifice? Welcome to Bible Stories 1983, where we uncover the mysteries, the forgotten tales, and the cinematic drama hidden within the Word of God. If you're passionate about diving deeper into the Scriptures, peeling back the layers of history, theology, and human emotion, then you're in the right place. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss these powerful journeys through the Bible. But now, let us step back into ancient Israel, into the land of Gilead, into a time when judges ruled and war pressed at the gates. And there, in the shadows of rejection and pain, a boy was born. A boy whose destiny would shake the nation. The Bible introduces him with a single striking sentence. Now Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior, but he was the son of a prostitute. Judges 11:1. Before we see his victories, before we hear his vow, we are told his shame. His story does not begin with glory. It begins with rejection. Imagine the scene. Gilead, a fertile region east of the Jordan River, where families bore names with honor and land was passed down like treasure. Yet in the house of Gilead, a scandal unfolded. A son was born, not from his lawful wife, but from a woman despised in society, a prostitute. That boy was Jephthah. As he grew, his strength and skill became evident. The boy had the heart of a fighter. Perhaps it was born out of necessity. Children are cruel, and whispers follow like shadows. That's the harlot's son. He doesn't belong here. Every sideways glance, every insult in the marketplace, every cold shoulder from his brothers carved wounds into his young heart. One by one, the sons of Gilead grew, but they shared the same hatred. You will have no inheritance with us. You are the son of another woman. With these words, Jephthah was cast out of his father's house. Imagine the sting of rejection, not by enemies, but by his own flesh and blood. His father Gilead remained silent, unable or unwilling to shield him. So Jephthah walked away from his home, his land, his name, carrying only bitterness and the strength in his hands. He fled to the land of Tob, a barren frontier on the edge of civilization. It was there, among the outcasts, the broken and the desperate, that Jephthah found his company. The Bible calls them worthless fellows, men with no honor, no place, and no hope. Yet to Jephthah they were brothers. They became his band, his small army, his only family. Picture him now, scarred by rejection, yet hardened into a warrior, training in the wilderness, leading raids, carving out survival in a harsh land. While Israel forgot him, Jephthah was being shaped in the shadows. His pain became his strength. His rejection became his fuel. And yet, beneath the hardened warrior's face, there must have been a boy who remembered, a boy who once longed to sit at his father's table, a son who wondered why he was born to shame, a child who carried unanswered questions. Why, God? Why was I not wanted? Why was I cast away? Jephthah's story is not just about a man. It is about the wounds of rejection that echo in every generation. How many of us know what it feels like to be unwanted, to be pushed aside, to be told, "You don't belong here"? Yet in the mystery of God, it is often the rejected stone that becomes the cornerstone. For years, Jephthah lived outside Israel's memory, but God was not done with him, for even as his brothers drove him out, destiny was waiting. And soon the cries of Israel would come searching for the very man they had despised. Years passed in Tob. Jephthah, the rejected son, had become a warrior of unmatched skill, a leader among outcasts, a man whose name was whispered in fear across the wilderness. And yet, his heart still carried the invisible scars of childhood, the echo of his brother's words, the memory of the home that would not embrace him. Meanwhile, Israel was in turmoil. The Ammonites, fierce and merciless, pressed against Gilead. Villages burned. Families were dragged into slavery. Crops were scorched. For 18 long years, the land groaned under oppression. The people of Gilead, once proud and independent, trembled under the weight of fear. Their cries for deliverance rose to heaven. "O Lord, have mercy. Save us from the hands of our enemies." But Israel had fallen into a familiar cycle. They had turned from the Lord, worshipping foreign gods, building altars to Baal and Ashtaroth. Their prayers were desperate, but the response was measured. God allowed suffering to refine the hearts of his people, yet he also prepared a vessel for deliverance, a man the nation had long forgotten. And so the elders of Gilead did something remarkable. They swallowed their pride and crossed into Tob, traveling to the wilderness to find the very man they had once cast aside. They approached Jephthah with humility and desperation. "Come, be our commander, that we may fight against the Ammonites." Imagine Jephthah in that moment. The wind whistled through the rocks of Tob, the dust swirling around his feet. He could see the elders, their faces lined with worry, but also tinged with fear. He remembered their rejection, their cruelty, their laughter at his expense. His heart, forged in years of exile, wanted to reject them back. "Did you not hate me?" Jephthah's voice was sharp, yet laced with pain. "Did you not drive me from my father's house? Why do you come to me now when you are in distress?" The elders bowed their heads, ashamed. Desperation softened even the hardest hearts. "Nevertheless, we come to you now. If you will lead us to battle against the Ammonites, you shall be our head, our judge, our deliverer." A silence fell over the wilderness. The sun dipped behind the hills. Jephthah's eyes, once full of bitterness, now measured the weight of their words. Could he forgive? Could he answer the call of a nation that had once cast him aside? And then a choice. He would lead them, not for pride, not for revenge, but because God's hand moved even through the broken. The rejected son became the chosen deliverer. Before marching to war, Jephthah demanded a covenant with the elders, an oath before the Lord himself. Only with the authority of God and the agreement of Israel could he step into the coming storm. He was no longer an outlaw in the wilderness. He was now Israel's champion, a man who had turned pain into purpose. But even in this triumph, a shadow loomed. The Ammonites were ruthless. Their armies were strong, their hatred unrelenting. And Jephthah, seasoned though he was, faced a moral and spiritual dilemma that no battlefield would fully prepare him for. How could a man of God balance vengeance, mercy, and obedience? How could a warrior hold the lives of thousands in his hands without losing his own soul? As Jephthah gathered his warriors, he looked across the rugged hills of Gilead one last time. The wilderness that had been his home, his refuge, and his crucible now became the staging ground for destiny. The rejected son was about to become the voice of God's justice, the hand of deliverance, and the instrument of Israel's hope. And so, with a heart heavy with memory, yet burning with purpose, Jephthah led his men out of Tob. The wind carried the banners of hope and fear across the land, whispering a prophecy. The man who had been scorned would now decide the fate of nations. Before swords clashed and armies fell, Jephthah, the once rejected son of Gilead, took the first steps of a leader: diplomacy. War is often fought with swords and shields, but the true battle begins with words. And so, Jephthah sent envoys to the king of Ammon, men chosen not only for their loyalty, but for their wisdom. He spoke boldly, yet carefully. "Why have you come to fight me?" he asked through his messengers. "Israel did not seize the land of Ammon. When we came from Egypt, we asked only for peace, that we might pass through your land. Your fathers refused us. They fought Israel, and God gave them into our hand. For 300 years, Israel has lived in the lands east of the Jordan, cultivating them and calling them home. Why now do you rise against us? The words were more than history. They were truth carried like a sword in the messengers' mouths. But the king of Ammon would hear none of it. Pride and wrath clouded his judgment. He would not yield. The response came as a rejection, an insult, a declaration of war. Jephthah stood upon the hills of Gilead, wind sweeping through his hair, dust swirling at his feet. He had a choice: retreat, negotiate further, or place his trust entirely in God. And in the weight of that moment, he made a vow born of desperation, faith, and perhaps a human misjudgment. If you, O Lord, deliver the Ammonites into my hands, then whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me upon my return shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it as a burnt offering. The vow, spoken into the dry, whispering winds of the hills, was heavy with gravity. To promise the life of a loved one to God was not a decision made lightly. But the spirit of urgency, the terror of failure, and the hope for victory pushed him to speak these words aloud. In that moment, Jephthah's heart must have wrestled with fear and faith. Would God truly demand what he had promised? Could a man navigate between devotion and destruction? In the wilderness of his exile, he had learned survival. Now, in the battlefield of faith, he would learn the weight of words spoken before the Almighty. The army of Israel gathered, men who had once scorned him in whispers and fear, now standing shoulder to shoulder behind him. The banners fluttered in the rising sun, swords glinting, shields worn from countless campaigns. Yet even amid this display of strength, Jephthah's mind was not at ease. His eyes glimpsed the horizon, where the Ammonite forces prepared to strike. His ears, trained in the quiet of the wilderness, heard the echo of his vow whispering back, "Whatever comes out of your house shall be mine." And so the stage was set. The drama of destiny, the suspense of human decision, and the unseen hand of God all converged. The boy once rejected was now a man chosen, carrying the hopes of Israel and the burden of his own oath. Victory would come, yes, but it would not be without cost. And the cost would be paid in a currency far dearer than gold or land. It would be paid in love, family, and the heart of a father. The winds of Gilead seemed to hold their breath. The hills were silent witnesses, and in the quiet before battle, Jephthah lifted his gaze to heaven, whispering a prayer only God could hear. "Lord, grant me victory, and if I fail, grant me mercy. But if I succeed, let your will be done, even if it shatters me." The morning broke over Gilead like fire spilling across the hills. Dust hung in the air, mingling with the cries of Israel's warriors. Jephthah, once the rejected son of a prostitute, now stood at the head of an army that looked to him for life, for hope, for salvation. The weight of their trust pressed upon him, yet he bore it with the quiet dignity of a man hardened in exile. Across the plains, the Ammonite forces gathered, a sea of shields, spears, and banners rippling in the dawn wind. Their numbers dwarfed Israel's army, yet the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah. His heart beat with resolve. Every scar of childhood, every day of exile, every moment of rejection had led him here. Before battle, he lifted his voice to God in a final, desperate prayer. "Lord, you have seen my life, my exile, my pain. You know the blood of my brothers, the tears of my motherless nights. Give me strength, not for pride, but for your glory. Let your hand guide my sword, that Israel may be delivered and your name praised." The clash began like thunder rolling across the hills. Israel's warriors surged forward, shields clanging, swords slicing, cries of war mingling with the prayers of the faithful. The Ammonites countered with fury, their war cries shaking the valley. Dust and smoke obscured the battlefield, creating a vision of chaos that mirrored the tempest inside Jephthah's heart. Step by step, city by city, town by town, Jephthah led his men. The Spirit of the Lord empowered him, guiding his strategies, inspiring courage in his followers. Cities like Aroer, Minnith, and Abel-keramim fell one after another, their walls breached, their gates surrendered. The outcast warrior had become the instrument of divine justice. Yet even in the triumph, Jephthah's heart was heavy. He remembered the vow spoken in desperation, the words that now hovered like a shadow over every victory. Whatever comes out of the doors of my house shall be the Lord's. Victory was complete. The Ammonites were routed. Israel rejoiced in the streets, singing songs of deliverance, lifting Jephthah on their shoulders. The man who had known rejection, loneliness, and exile now stood as Israel's champion. His tears mingled with the dust of the battlefield, not for pride, but for awe. Awe at what God had done through a broken, rejected son. But even as the songs echoed, an unspoken dread lingered in Jephthah's chest. The battle was won, yet the shadow of his vow remained. Triumph had come at a cost yet unseen, a price he would soon face on the road home, a price that would pierce his heart more deeply than any sword ever could. The hills of Gilead, which had witnessed his rejection, now witnessed his glory. But they also whispered of the tragedy that waited beyond the gates of his own house. For the greatest victory of Jephthah's life would not be measured by the fall of Ammon, but by the tears of his own blood. The dust of battle had barely settled. The banners of Israel still fluttered in the morning wind. Warriors sang songs of triumph, and the air was thick with the scent of victory. Jephthah, the boy once rejected, now stood as Israel's champion. His heart should have been light, yet a shadow pressed heavily upon him, a shadow shaped by the vow he had spoken in desperation. The road home wound through the hills of Gilead, each step carrying him closer to a truth he had not dared imagine. His mind, trained for battle, now raced with dread. Who will greet me at my house, he wondered. Will it be a servant, a neighbor, or... His heart caught in his chest, a silent premonition he could not shake. And then the gate opened. The sunlight fell upon a figure, small and radiant, moving with joyful rhythm. Tambourines rang out in celebration. Laughter, pure and innocent, filled the air, and there she was, his only child, his daughter, the very life he had brought into the world, untouched by malice, unaware of the doom her father's words had summoned. Time seemed to halt. The warriors, the banners, the echoes of battle all faded into silence. Jephthah's eyes widened, his soul trembling. The man who had crushed enemies, who had led Israel to victory, now faced a battle of the heart that no sword could win. "Alas, my daughter," he cried, his voice breaking, "you have brought me very low, for I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow." She stopped. Her tambourine fell silent. Fear and sorrow danced in her eyes, yet courage shone brighter than the morning sun. "My father," she whispered, "you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me as you have vowed, for the Lord has given you victory over your enemies. Only grant me this: 2 months to wander the hills with my companions and weep for the life I will never have." Imagine her footsteps, light yet resolute, carrying her across the mountainside. 2 months of mourning, 2 months of silent grief, 2 months of knowing that life's greatest dreams, marriage, children, a home, were now forever out of reach. And all the while her father watched, helpless, his heart shattering with every step. During those days, Jephthah wandered the hills in solitude, praying, questioning, and wrestling with God. Why, Lord? Why must a vow demand such a price? Could there have been another way? His victories on the battlefield now seemed hollow compared to the emptiness within his own home. When the 2 months ended, she returned, silent, composed, unbroken in spirit, though broken in circumstance. Jephthah fulfilled his vow, and the halls of his house echoed with grief instead of laughter. Israel had been delivered, Ammon had fallen, yet within the walls of Gilead, joy had died. The people remembered the victory, but only Jephthah and his daughter knew the true cost. Their story became a haunting legacy, whispered among generations. a tale of obedience, heartbreak, and the cruel weight of words spoken in desperation. It is here, in this moment, that the story of Jephthah reaches its most painful height, a vivid reminder that even the greatest triumphs can bear the deepest sorrows, and that the human heart, though strong, can be shattered by the very promises it makes to God. Victory, as brilliant as it gleamed, carried shadows that not even the brightest sun could dispel. The Ammonites had been defeated, Israel delivered, and Jephthah returned home with the awe of a nation behind him. But as the dust settled on the battlefield, another storm brewed, not from foreign enemies, but from within. The tribe of Ephraim, proud and competitive, could not bear to see Gilead rise in glory without them. Their hearts burned with jealousy. Their voices, sharp with accusation, rose against Jephthah. "Why did you not call us to fight? Why did you not invite us to share in the glory of victory? We will burn your house down with fire." Imagine the tension in the air, the simmering anger of a people who once fought for unity, now driven by envy. Jephthah, weary from battle, grief-stricken over his daughter, and burdened by the weight of his vow, now faced another trial, a trial of justice, leadership, and the fragile bonds of a nation. He could have ignored them, fled back into the wilderness, or let anger consume him, but history demanded a reckoning. Jephthah rallied the men of Gilead once more, this time not against foreign foes, but against those who questioned his authority. The fords of the Jordan became the stage for a bitter, tragic confrontation. 42,000 Ephraimites fell, their cries mingling with the rushing waters of the Jordan. Families were torn apart, brothers lost to brothers. The celebration of victory became a dirge of sorrow. Jephthah, standing upon the battlefield, must have felt the weight of the lives taken, the echoes of blood on the earth, and the haunting question: was this justice or the continuation of tragedy? In the aftermath, the people of Gilead recognized him as a mighty leader, but the cost had been immense. His daughter was gone, Ephraim had fallen, and the land itself seemed to mourn. Victory, they say, has many faces, and this was one of its most sorrowful. Yet even in this darkness, Jephthah's story offered lessons of obedience, courage, and the complexities of leadership. A man, though flawed and burdened by vows, can still serve God's purpose. But human pride, jealousy, and misunderstanding can turn even triumph into tragedy. As the sun set over the hills of Gilead, Jephthah looked out over the land. His victories had secured Israel's freedom. His enemies were defeated, and yet his heart bore the scars of personal loss, and the echoes of grief lingered in every corner of the land. The rejected son had become a mighty warrior, but even might could not shield him from the sorrow woven into the tapestry of human life. The dust of battle had long settled, and the cries of mourning had faded into the hills of Gilead. Yet the story of Jephthah lingered in the land, etched into memory, whispered among families, and inscribed into the hearts of all who heard of the mighty warrior who had been both chosen and broken. Jephthah, now an older man, walked the same hills where he had once trained as an outcast, where he had led his band of exiles, where he had prayed for victory. The boy who had been cast aside by his father's house had become a figure of awe and fear across Israel. Yet his heart remained heavy, a mixture of pride, grief, and unresolved sorrow. He would often pause by the flowing rivers, gazing at the water as it mirrored the sky, and think of the daughter who had stepped out to meet him. Her courage, her acceptance, her strength in the face of an unimaginable fate haunted him more than the battlefield ever could. He understood now the true weight of a vow made hastily in desperation, and the profound consequences that follow words spoken without consideration. In the evenings, by the flickering light of a solitary lamp, Jephthah would recount the lessons of his life to those who came seeking wisdom. "Obedience to God is vital," he would say, voice quivering. "But the heart must always temper the vows we make. The Lord tests us not only in war, but in the choices we carry within our souls. The people of Gilead remembered him not just for his victories, but for the humanity he displayed in tragedy. They sang of his bravery, but also wept for the cost of his promises. Each year, the daughters of Israel would observe a tradition of mourning in memory of Jephthah's daughter, a testament to courage, obedience, and the heavy toll of vows. This tradition would carry across generations, a perpetual reminder that even the strongest warrior can be humbled by love and faith. And yet, in the quiet of the night, Jephthah would lift his eyes toward heaven. His spirit, though scarred, was resolute. He understood that God's ways are beyond human understanding, that even in suffering, divine purpose is at work, that life, fragile and fleeting, carries lessons that cannot be measured in victories alone. The hills of Gilead seemed to whisper back to him, carrying the echoes of the past, the laughter of a daughter lost, the cries of Ephraim, the clash of swords, the songs of deliverance. In these echoes, Jephthah found both sorrow and peace. He had been rejected, he had been tested, and he had been made a vessel of God's justice. His legacy was not only in the battles he won, but in the hearts he touched, the lessons he imparted, and the unyielding faith that endured despite unimaginable loss. And so the story of Jephthah closes not with triumphant fanfare alone, but with reflection, humility, and the haunting beauty of a life that bore both glory and sorrow in equal measure. His story became a testament to the strength and fragility of the human heart, a narrative of courage, faith, and the enduring consequences of the choices we make. Jephthah's story challenges us to think, to feel, and to grow, showing us that even in pain, God's purpose unfolds in ways we cannot always understand. If this journey through Scripture moved you, inspired thought, or touched your heart, make sure to like this video. Share it with those who seek the hidden lessons and dramatic truths within the Word of God. Subscribe to our channel, Bible Stories 1983, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single journey through the sacred text. Join us as we continue to explore the lives of the mighty, the faithful, and even the broken, because in every story of the Bible there is wisdom, there is drama, and there is the enduring power of God's hand guiding the course of human history. Remember, sometimes the greatest victories carry the heaviest costs. Sometimes the most forgotten lives leave the deepest lessons. And in every moment, God is at work, shaping, testing, and revealing the truths that remain eternal. Thank you for watching, and may the story of Jephthah inspire courage, reflection, and faith in your own journey.